Welcome everyone to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. Smackdown has just wrapped up in the UK. We did watch that live. If you want it spoiler free, by all means do not watch that one until Smackdown actually starts for you in your area later on today. We are going to attempt to avoid spoilers, at least significant spoilers. There are a few minor spoilers. After all, this is Spoiler Warning. So welcome everyone. Today's headlines will be about the new UK deal and how that impacts NXT Europe. The continentalization, that's the word they're using. They're avoiding the word globalization for obvious reasons, which includes a number of other countries being involved with pay-per-views and bidding wars. The new UFC plan involving the continentalization of the WWE and how that affects it. Vince McMahon not being in the UK. Plans for Brock versus Cody 3, in which there will be a slight spoiler as regards to plans for Money in the Bank. An increase in the use of Logan Paul incoming and how he will be used going forwards. The US title picture and my predictions formally for Money in the Bank to round us out. So I want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's already joined us. Plenty of people here. Spider Boss says hello again, Tom. Today Bailey said she'd love to wrestle with Mercedes Money no matter what the place. Of course she did. They're friends. Why are we surprised by that? Spider Boss also says I think Adam Cole and MJF could be the next AEW Tag Team Champions. Cool. Bailey says hello, Tom. Hello, Bailey. How are you? And of course, on the YouTube side, we have Callie, Joe, Carlos, Daz. Dark Society says hi, Tom. How are you doing? Doing well, thank you. Daz says liked and shared on Twitter. Thank you kindly for that. RF Gaming says I still have to wait 3 hours. Hopefully it'll be all right. For us, it actually only lasted an hour and 45 minutes because we had teeny tiny commercial breaks and they were amazing. Razar says, hi Tom, I'm back. How was Smackdown? What did you think? I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it personally. I don't know if long term it will translate when you add in 15 minutes of commercial breaks, but I thought it was great. Khalid, hello, how are you? Jordan saying hello again as well. Hello Jordan. Hello Jaden. So many of you already here. Thank you kindly for joining me. So our top story is regards the UK deal for WWE programming. We know about BT Sport, but BT Sport and its move to TNT Sports, the merger there, is also having an impact on AEW. There is AEW commercials being loaded by BT Sport onto WWE programming. Now, the WWE is locked into BT Sport for a long time yet, but when it comes to the UK, they are looking at a strong deal for NXT Europe and, of course, going forwards, NXT and WWE pay-per-views. Note that I said NXT and WWE. NXT Europe will still involve UK pay-per-views specifically for NXT Europe, as well as roaming pay-per-views across different countries. NXT Europe will not be considering the UK its home because of the relatively recent Brexit deal that went through at the end of 2020, which makes it a little more difficult and a little more expensive to move their equipment back and forth. When it comes to the rest of Europe, they are planning a base. Germany's been mentioned a number of times as a potential base for NXT Europe, though it will be basically depending on who is willing to pay the most. The UK also at the moment is willing to pay quite a lot of money for WWE programming. It does help stimulate our economy at a time when we desperately need it, but the WWE are open to a number of additional countries. The deal with the UK basically states they will give us one pay-per-view per year, much like the Saudi Arabia deal where they promise 2 pay-per-views per year. They are promising the UK 1 pay-per-view per year. I originally reported this before, the spoiler warning before Clash at the Castle last year. The WWE are looking to make these connections with a number of other countries as well. The countries, I've already mentioned some of these, but to reiterate, Australia, India, and China. There is a bidding war at the moment with a number of other countries as to how much they are willing to pay the WWE to come in and help support their growth as a country. Marcus here says, hey, hello Mark. Venom is here, says hi Tom. Spiderboss says with the men's Money in the Bank, who gets his way, Vince or Triple H? Vince, always Vince. Vince will always get his way. Vince is in charge. Also asked, could we see Amanda Nunes in WWE if she's interested in joining? Yes. Kevin says, can you see any titles changing for Smackdown tonight? I'm going to go ahead and no comment that one on the basis that I've already watched it. Razar says, when NXT Europe launches, will they send all the NXT UK people that are in NXT or hire new talent? There has already been the hiring beginning. So they will send some people from NXT and from the former NXT UK over to NXT Europe. There's already been a number of people who've been approached to sign new deals and to be involved in NXT Europe going forward. I do not have names at this point in time because I have not got this source from them. I got this source from WWE's offices. Dad says, Tom, do you think Ray will be backstage tomorrow? Yes. He was also backstage this week. Spiderboss says, I never got why Mr. Kennedy lost the Money in the Bank briefcase. Popularity issues, primarily. Popularity. Oh, we have a troll. Oh, it's been so long. Troll harder. Like, troll better. Michael says, hi, Tom. Do you have anything additional about Mercedes meeting with Tony Khan? Not at this point in time, no. I know that there was a meeting between the two of them where Tony Khan pitched the AEW contract that has been offered to her. I previously mentioned an AEW contract being offered to her. That's been confirmed by other sources as well. Razar says, did they announce Cody versus Dom is main eventing Money in the Bank? I'm seeing people saying that. Yes, they did. Michael Cole specifically said Cody Rhodes versus Dominic Mysterio main event for Money in the Bank. I have a little more on that to come. The UFC are also being overseen by Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is solely in charge, well, not solely in charge, there is obviously the Endeavour level, but Vince McMahon is at Endeavour level over the head of UFC, led by Dana White, and WWE, which is led by Nick Khan. Because Vince McMahon has a focus on the continentalization and Endeavour is looking to create that, that is something that the UFC business model is going to be built on as well. And this is why part of the WWE negotiations for events such as Money in the Bank in the UK will also include discussions about UFC involvement. There is a desire to get the UFC a lot more global as well. Thank you for sourcing that, Carlos. I appreciate that. Moxie says, yo, hello Moxie, how are you? Riyadh says, Cody and Dom main eventing shows how much Vince doesn't like Finn. I may or may not have, of course, mentioned on Monday's spoiler warning that Finn Balor might not be getting the rub of the green with Vince McMahon back in charge. Here we are with him definitely, quite definitively, not getting that main event. Next up, I want to report that Vince McMahon is not in the UK. To my knowledge, he has not travelled with WWE for Money in the Bank and will not be in attendance. He will remain in the US. This is a large part of the reason, and slight spoiler here, a large part of the reason that Triple H rewrote elements of this week's SmackDown to better reflect his vision rather than Vince McMahon's vision. There is nowhere that is more clear than the current United States Championship picture. Kelvin says Cody Rhodes versus Dominic Mysterio main event in the pay-per-view over the Bloodline or Seth versus Finn. That is correct. Spiderboss says it surprises me the Bloodline match didn't get the main event of Money in the Bank. I agree. I agree with that. It clearly tells you something about what they're planning for Cody versus Dominic. Wiggly says, just got back, that SmackDown was barely an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah. SmackDown historically is about an hour and 23 minutes, always. So we got UK length commercial breaks, and they were great. So it ended up being an hour and 43, I think it was in the end. I ain't got no complaints about that. Let's talk Cody and Dominic for a moment. This story is not about Dominic. We know this. We know this. They did not want to put the focus too clearly on Dominic, but he will gain a benefit from working with Cody Rhodes. There are fears at the moment that Cody Rhodes is losing momentum, but the story, as we know, is going to be what happens next. Cody Rhodes will be facing Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. I first reported this in, I think, April, shortly after WrestleMania, once it became apparent what the plan was, that Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes would be having a free match series. Brock versus Cody is going to be a big one. There is talk, primarily from Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer, about there being a big stipulation. I wouldn't be too surprised to see a Hell in a Cell, for example. But Brock Lesnar will be getting involved. Brock Lesnar is in the UK, and there is a very high chance that the match has been moved to the main event because Brock Lesnar is going to be directly involved. This should shed a lot of doubt onto the idea that Drew McIntyre is going to be returning at Money in the Bank. Now, I have mentioned that Drew McIntyre is cleared. He will be returning shortly. About 2 weeks later, we started to see a lot of reports then that Drew McIntyre would be returning shortly. So, interesting thing. But Brock Lesnar at the moment is the one who will be making the big surprise return at Money in the Bank. I would expect to see him after the main event attacking Cody Rhodes to build up to our match at SummerSlam. It'll be one of the main events, though not the actual main event of SummerSlam. Wiggly says, basically, WWE wanted to get home in time for your stream. I mean, why would they miss spoiler warning? Callie says, you'd think the Bloodline main event? Yep. And Venom says, do you think Logan Paul wins a briefcase? Nope. Razar says, what's going on with Rhea's title reign? Seems like a side character. The world champion. Is there a reason for this? Yes. Lack of quality opponents. They're saving the big names for bigger matches and bigger events. The period between WrestleMania and SummerSlam is not the period in which they put the big names against the champions, which is why they haven't. They also plan to have a championship reign be quite long, so they don't want to essentially blow their load too early. Kervin says, how was the Charlotte versus Asuka match? Really good, not bad, or great? It was not bad. Venom says, can you see without your glasses on? Just wondering. Yeah, but not great. I can't read where it says spoiler warning or any of your... or most of your comments. I can just about read the comments. But yeah, I'm blind as a bat. Spider Boss says, Cody versus Brock Lesnar in a street fight would be nice. Ray says, will Brock Lesnar get involved in the Cody match in Money in the Bank? Yep. Wiggly says, is Io winning the briefcase? So Asuka is not wrestling tomorrow. Mustafa says, Smackdown already happened? Yes, it did. It was live in the UK and the UK only. Isaac says, do you think we see or get a Bray Wyatt tease this weekend? No. Bray Wyatt, to my knowledge, also not in the UK. Wiggly says, will we get another UK stadium show anytime soon? Or did they downsize for a reason? We'll see how it does next time. Wiggly, stop asking the same question. We're going to have the predictions later. If I don't read out your question, there's a reason for it, and you know that. Ray says, will LA Knight win Money in the Bank? Peter says, for everyone out there, Randy Orton will not be returning tomorrow, which is correct. He will not. Spoiler warning. The WWE's new deal with Logan Paul does include more appearances than his last contract. We will be seeing a little more of him, though we will be seeing a similar amount of matches. He was a long-term choice to be added to the Money in the Bank ladder match, and I do feel he's going to add a lot. They do feel, and Vince McMahon certainly feels, that there is a lack of star power at the moment in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Meanwhile, they are planning to continue the push that they've designated for Damian Priest, and this ladder match is an extremely good opportunity to do so. LA Knight will also get the benefit. I'm sure when you guys watch Smackdown, you'll see the response he got from the crowd, because it is quite impressive. Spider-Boss says, I know the Raw Women's division doesn't have too many credible rivals for Rhea, but I think Candice or Piper Niven would have been good rivals for Rhea. They are not to the caliber that the WWE expect to be the big names, and I'd imagine people would be even more annoyed because they'd be like, oh, why is she fighting them? Why is she fighting them? Why is she fighting them? There is a balancing issue that needs to be addressed. Wiggly says, not sure if you're aware, a new British Bulldog Signature Series IC belt was released. No. Spider-Boss says, we could see Pat McAfee back on SmackDown commentary. One day, yes. Will says, you did tell us that after Mania that Cody and Brock will have 3 matches. You're on this a long time ago. Shocking. April then. Thank you, Will, for remembering that. And Mark just goes, yeah. You're going to enjoy SmackDown, babe. Only 2 things left to cover, one of which will be my Money in the Bank predictions. I recognise that I'm sort of flying through it, but I think the fact that SmackDown is on earlier has sort of dampened the enthusiasm for spoiler warning a little bit. Spider-Boss says, I think Becky will be the one to beat Rhea. And Wiggly says, I'm sad Asuka won't be wrestling tomorrow. Asuka wrestled today, mate. Enjoy what you got, mate. Enjoy what you got. The US title picture, and there's going to be a slight spoiler in this. I do need to talk about what happened on Smackdown. There is a clear shift in the direction of Sheamus. It does seem like we're going to get at SummerSlam Sheamus versus Austin Theory, despite the fact that next week we have an announced match for the US title between Austin Theory and Sheamus. There is a clear pivot away from the bloodline. It was Vince McMahon who was leading the idea for Solo Sikoa versus Sheamus. It's not something that Triple H wants to follow up with. Triple H already had a plan for Sheamus, so he's pivoted back to where he was previously, just slightly ahead of time. SummerSlam should be where we see Sheamus versus Austin Theory. I don't necessarily see Austin Theory picking up the win, but I'd imagine Butch and, of course, Ridge Holland will continue to be involved in this one. Moxley says, I think they should do Nikki Cross versus Rhea in a proper feud. They have history, and if WWE let them go, they would put on a good match. I agree with that. But it certainly seems like SummerSlam was supposed to be Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan, who also has history, but slightly more recent. Pardon me. Pardon me. We currently have 50 viewers and 25 likes. If you're able to, please do remember to hit that thumbs up. It does make a massive difference to the growth of the channel. We did get a couple more subscribers earlier on today. I'd imagine the troll is now unsubscribed again. No, Troll's still here, and we are currently sitting on 2,481 subscribers. Because my chat is set to subscriber only mode, a troll will have to subscribe in order to be a troll. And when they do that, cool, because that massively increases my engagement and says to YouTube, oh, people like subscribing to this, let's send more people that way, etc, etc. If I then ban the troll and they create a new account and then subscribe again, like seriously, be a troll is great. I really appreciate it. But we are currently on 2,480 subscribers. We are marching towards 2,500, and I would appreciate your subscription if you haven't already given it. Joey says, hey Tom, almost forgot you were live. The early Smackdown show confused me. What did I miss? Not too much. We're talking about the UK deal. We're talking about NXT Europe. The countries bidding for WWE pay-per-views, the UFC model going forward, now that Vince has oversight on that one. Vince McMahon, not being in the UK. Plans for Brock versus Cody 3. Logan Paul's involvement going forward in the US title. Next up will be my Money in the Bank predictions, the formal ones. And we still have a troll. Called it. Jordan says, Damian Priest is my pick to win Money in the Bank. Dad is asking for CM Punk news. At this point in time, I don't have any CM Punk news. I've reported quite a bit, but at the moment, I just don't have all that much, to be honest. Razar says, I'm looking at the current roster and I don't know who KO and Sammy will defend against at SummerSlam if they're on the card. There's a couple of possibilities. I think the Street Profits are definitely a shoe-in there, but outside of that, it gets a bit difficult. Joey says, what do you think AJ Styles does at SummerSlam? Goes home. AJ Styles is not considered a big deal anymore. He just isn't. James says, I missed Smackdown because of the time change. Damn, how was it? It was good. Really quite enjoyed it. Really quite enjoyed it. Joey says, our good old friend Boozer said there's a battle with Triple H and Vince on who should win the Money in the Bank. Vince isn't there. Vince isn't there, the battle's over. Razar says if they don't have any opponents for Rhea, why are they building some undercard feuds? Like they just dropped Candice and Nikki's storyline for no reason? I don't know. Because at the moment, when it comes to women's wrestling, unfortunately, Triple H does not really put too much focus in it. He just doesn't. Wiggly, if you're not back to about 5 minutes in, you'll see the list there. Spider-Boss says, with NXT changing soon, I think apart from Bron Breakker, Roxanne Perez can move on to the main roster soon. I'd also list Cora Jade there. There's a few people, and I mentioned this during the SmackDown watch party, there's a few people who are very much the NXT 2.0 people. And if they're the NXT 2.0 people, when NXT 3.0 comes in with a new TV deal, there'll need to be a change. Bron Breakker moving on, Roxanne Perez moving on, I definitely can see that going. Bailey says Vince may not be in the UK, but he has to know where the matches are heading, correct? Yep, he signed it all off. Signed it all off. Moxie says, I think we get KO and Sammy versus Imperium at SummerSlam, which I would like. Wiggly says, I would legit go out to India for a WWE PLE if that happened. Hello, BM. Kevin says, let's be honest, Mr. McMahon gets Piper or Doudrop more TV time, but Triple H, nothing. Very true. Recently, of course, at the Royal Rumble, Becky Lynch would defend the championship against Piper Niven. There'd be a fire, but you know. Joey says, give me sport reporting. I'm just going to stop you right there because I really don't want to hear anything from Louis Dangle. Jack says about the Creed brothers since they lose the leave match. Guess they lost a loser leaves town match. Venom says, do you know if Schism loses this loser leaves town match? I don't have the results of matches that have not yet happened. Razal says it was spoiled at the Creed... Guys, come on. Some people still want to watch that. Kelly says, will they move Mello up even though he's NXT champ? Chances are he will lose the championship first. Wiggly says, an Anglo-Indian, that would actually be very sentimental for me to see the WWE do a PLE there. Welcome, Corey. Thank you very much for resubscribing on Twitch for a 27th month. Says, hey Tom, long time no see. Besides us talking in Discord, hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoyed Smackdown. I'll say my thoughts at 10 Eastern when I watch it, which is fair enough, mate. Thank you very much for that generosity and for joining us. Eddie says, will it be Omega that want to pin Roman at Mania 41? Boozer teased it. No. Spider-Boss says, so far, what do you think about Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's tag team title reign? It's been very much defined by the bloodline, and for me, it's only just starting. Only just. Wiggly wishes everyone a happy Pride. Will says, once again, people got mad at you because you told us NXT UK was ending. And more than a year later, we all know who was right. Yes, I remember that one. Thank you very much for the reminder, Will. It certainly caused a lot of my peers to go nuclear. Thank you very much, Callie, for renewing your membership. You've been here for 4 months as a channel member, and I very much appreciate it. Channel supporter, I should say. But my peers seriously lost their mind and went full-on nuclear because I reported correctly that NXT UK was being shut down. This was confirmed by Triple H in an interview with Ariel Helwani right before Clash of the Castle last year. Carlos says, weird the Cora and Roxanne are enhancement talents now at 21 years old, veterans at 21. I wouldn't call them veterans, certainly. Joey says, do you think we'll see the call-ups after SummerSlam? Yes, I do. Kevin says, Triple H hates the kickoff show matches. Mr. McMahon, every single pay-per-view delivers 1 or 2 matches on the kickoff show. Not quite accurate. The actual kickoff show matches stopped while Vince was still in power. 456 says, is there SmackDown tonight? Yes, there is. The SmackDown watch party has already happened. Wiggly says, meeting the Alpha Academy tomorrow in my constituency should be fun. Joey says, I would have liked to see AJ Styles versus Austin Theory for the US title at SummerSlam. Me too, and I do think AJ Styles might be the one to take it. Eddie has LA Knight and Io Sky for the win for Money in the Bank. Kervin says, I hope WWE don't plan for SummerSlam Charlotte versus Asuka versus Bianca over Asuka versus Io Sky. Seems to be where they're headed for me. Spider-Boss says, people as SRS and Meltzer go with you after some of us put you over with the Mercedes money Sasha Banks news. Yeah, they don't like me. Joey says, what news do you have on NXT Europe? The news on NXT Europe was first piece of news. I advise you to just sit back in the recording and check that out. So we are left with my Money in the Bank predictions. Now, I've got predictions out there. Most people know what I think is going to happen, but let's talk about what's actually going to happen. I'm going to go through it one by one. I'm still going to read your comments between each one, and I would love to know your thoughts as well on everything that you think is going to happen. I'm going to start with what I think is going to be the show opener. Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa versus the Usos. If the main event is going to be Cody versus Dominic, then surely this will be the opening match. I do not fancy the Usos' chances. First of all, guys, let me know right now who you think is going to be winning that match. But I do not fancy the Usos' chances. Personally, I have Roman and Solo. The bloodline may be dying, but it's not dead yet. We still need to get to Roman versus Solo, and we still need to get to Roman versus Jay. The feud is only just warming up, if you ask me. Personally, I think if the Usos win, that's the end of the story, and they move on. Revenge has been had, there's nothing more to tell. I think there's more to tell. If we're going to get to Jay versus Roman, Jay needs to lose, and Roman needs to pin him. Corey says, I've got 8 hours of wrestling tomorrow, the pre-show for Money in the Bank and Collision. I'm ready. I'm going to try and get a good night's sleep. Good luck, mate. Joe says, Tom, do you think John Cena comes back tomorrow night? No. Spider Boss says, is Meiko Satomura still in WWE? Yes, she is. She's mostly been working backstage on training and production. I've mentioned this after her match against Mandy Rose. Wiggly thinks the match will end in no contest. Bailey says it'll be Roman Solo. Spider Boss gives all the picks and goes for Roman and Solo. We have mixed reception on the other side. Daz says Usos. Jack says Roman and Solo. Callie is also going the Usos. Mark says Solo will turn on Roman and Jay will put up the pin on Roman. Well, that's very much the end of the bloodline with nothing else to go. I don't see Solo versus Roman at SummerSlam. I just don't see it. Ethan, SmackDown's already finished. SmackDown finished about 45 minutes ago. Riyadh also has Roman and Solo. Hogan said I think the Usos winning could just as easily lead to Jay versus Roman, especially if Jay pins Roman. So I'm not sure Jay and Jimmy winning would end that story. Carlos has Roman. Corey has Roman and Solo. Venom also Roman and Solo. Next up, I have the Women's Tag Team Championship match, which is Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Let me know who you think is winning that one. Spiderboss says, what's more painful, a chop from Gunter or an F5 from Brock? Chop from Gunter. F5 is not painful. So, the Women's Tag Team Championship match is probably the biggest lock that is available. I don't think there's any question as to who is winning this one. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez are not regaining those championships. If anything, I think this is the end of their tag team. Both of them are likely to be working with Rhea Ripley in the days and weeks to come. So I have Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler picking up the win at Money in the Bank and probably going forwards defending those championships a lot more often. Yes, Corey, I will be having a watch party tomorrow. Wiggly says Ronda and Shayna. Bailey has Ronda and Shayna. Spiderboss has Ronda and Shayna with Raquel taking the pin. And Corey has Ronda and Shayna. Looking on the YouTube side, Venom has Ronda and Shayna. Mark says easy, the MMA twins. Riyadh says Rousey and Baszler. Carlos says the champs retain. Razar has Ronda and Shayna. Daniela says I hope Liv and Raquel, but Head says Ronda and Shayna. Callie's the only one to deviate, saying Liv and Raquel. Dad says champs retain, and Daniela says how many hours is Money in the Bank? It'll be a 3+ hour show. Jordan is asking, are you planning on doing a fake news breakdown next week for rumours and reports from other outlets around the Money in the Bank PLE? I wasn't, but if you're interested in that, I can make that happen. Is that something people want to see? A fake news breakdown like we had after the Royal Rumble, like after WrestleMania, focusing on rumours about Money in the Bank. Venom says, will they be defending those titles on NXT? Yes. Sean says, did you agree with what Becky called Rhea on Raw? Do you see that as the Rumble or Mania match? I see it as a September-October match, and I cannot recall what she called her, to be honest. Kevin says, I see Raquel betrayed Liv Morgan. But she didn't. That's not something that's happened. Daz wants a fake news breakdown. Spiderball says, rumour killer section, please. It's cool. Joey thinks I should do a vote. Not at the moment. It takes too long. I don't have enough to talk about to cover all of that. But tomorrow, during the preview, the pre-show, I'll look to do something like that. Main event side piece. It's up to her to prove her wrong. And Corey says, I down. Next up, let's talk Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I've spoken for a couple of weeks now about the urge that the WWE has to make Asuka versus Io happen in the next season. Now I feel there's every possibility that Io Sky could carry this all the way to the Royal Rumble. Winning the Royal Rumble, of course, would give her Asuka at WrestleMania, but that means Asuka retaining the championship until WrestleMania. I believe Asuka versus Bayley is something that will be happening in the future, but at the moment, that would be heel versus heel. There's a lot still to do with Bianca Belair and Charlotte. Bianca Belair versus Charlotte will be the later in the year feud to define basically both of them and distract them both to keep them away leading into WrestleMania. So that's important. Becky Lynch is a favourite, but she would be failing her cash-in and she would not be getting her cash-in at SummerSlam because she'd be facing Trish Stratus at SummerSlam. I'm going with Io Sky. You may have seen my thread on this on Twitter. The threads, by the way, are doing extremely well on Twitter, and I think I'm kind of cracking the code there. But Io Sky was at the top, and she very much remains there for me. Carlos has Io Sky. Mark has Io or Zelina, but I think it will be Io. Venom wants it to be Becky, but I'm not sure. But there is a story to Becky winning. Wiggly says, my heart wants Io to win, but I also want to see Asuka have a WrestleMania moment, so this is difficult. Are we suggesting Asuka will lose her belt at Mania? That's what I'm suggesting, yes. Bailey's predicting Io, but room for a swerve. Daz has Becky to win. Razar has Io Sky. Riyadh has Io Sky. Sean says, if Wrestling Tracker is reliable, they're not. Jack Roman says Io Sky. Callie says, Becky wants to win, but she'll probably won't because of Trish. Wiggly says, I'm going to go rogue and say Trish Stratus. Then she loses the briefcase to Becky, but I want Io to win. Corey also has Io Sky. Tristan is asking for Roman's opponents at upcoming pay-per-views. We'll find out shortly. Kervin says, I want Io Sky cashing on WrestleMania. Because Seth Rollins is the only person cashing in at WrestleMania, it makes sense for a female. I certainly wouldn't hate that as an idea. Certainly wouldn't hate it. Joey says Io should win, Becky doesn't need it. I agree with that. And Sean says, I want Becky to win, but not to be the first to fail her cash-in for the women. I do feel that if Becky wins, she will fail her cash-in. Whereas I feel if Io wins, not so much. As we're on Money in the Bank matches, let's move to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Bear with me 1 second. So the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. You can't rule out Logan Paul. You can't rule out LA Knight. You also can't rule out Damian Priest. I personally am going for Damian Priest on this one. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of people who don't agree with me here, and I want you to tell me pretty much immediately. I don't have LA Knight. I don't have Logan Paul. I have Damian Priest for this one. Primarily because I want that briefcase to mean something going forwards, and I just don't see LA Knight as having an opportunity or any real shot to actually cash in successfully. So for me, it's Damian Priest, who could well cash in and make it a triple threat against Seth Rollins and Finn Balor later on. So that could certainly work for me. I have Damian Priest. Who do you have? Peter, I just want to say thank you for renewing your membership for a 7th month as a channel supporter. It really does make a big difference. That's literally an income for me that I'm currently paying taxes on. So it's a wonderful thing that is really helping me to have a good quality of life. You all paid for my holiday in Paris. I'm not joking. That's big. So, thank you. Brad said, is Drew coming back? Yes. Eventually. Wiggly says maybe Asuka does get a wrestler. Wiggly says men's match is an easy one for me. Logan Paul, but he won't be the champ. Bailey also says Logan Paul. If LA Knight wins, Vince will drop him down the roster after a failed cash-in. Wiggly says, can I ask why Logan Paul being involved in all this isn't drawing comparisons with David Arquette? Because David Arquette could not wrestle. Spider-Boss says it's becoming funny seeing fans aren't letting Dominic Mysterio talk. Corey is predicting LA Knight. Venom says LA Knight, yeah. Sean says LA Knight or bust. Joey is unsure. I don't always drink cherry coke, mate. I want to go to bed at a reasonable time. I need less caffeine. Carlos says LA Knight. Daz is also unsure. Callie says LA Knight. Brad likes Damian Priest, but doesn't know who's going to win. Riyadh says LA Knight, yeah. Mark says LA Knight, yeah, but longer. Peter said love the channel, and I want a souvenir next time. Fair enough, mate. I'll see what I can do. C-Max says, hey, Tom, good to see you. Would like to see Priest win it, but I have a feeling for Logan Paul. Spider-Boss also says Logan Paul. Jack Roman says, I say Damian Priest because Vince wants Logan, Triple H, Knight, so I believe neither will get what they want. Certainly a possibility. Bismo says, I really hope Logan Paul does not win Money in the Bank. I'd be okay with, and then names other people. Wiggly says, holidays in Paris and Twitch streaming. I think I need to start streaming. Not just Twitch. Not just Twitch. Gotta remember that stuff. Razar says, Logan Paul, don't think he'd lose 2 matches in a row. He's a celeb, and they protect their image a lot. He genuinely doesn't care. He's happy to lose as often as they want him to. Tristan says, is WWE going to let the briefcase holders hold the briefcase for a very long time? No. Joey says, I think Randy will make his return and help Riddle. He will not be doing so. Carlos says, if Damian wins, I want to cash in on Finn after beating Seth. Possible. And Joey says, Logan Paul versus Ricochet at SummerSlam would be a really fun match. There were teases of a Logan Paul match at SummerSlam during Smackdown, and that is all I will say. Gunter will defend the Intercontinental Championship against Matt Riddle, and I've got to say, this ain't a surprise to me, and it won't be a surprise to you when I tell you who I think is going to win this. I'm not even going to mess around or try and vamp it. It's Gunter. Gunter's going to win. So if you can all just like list, because I know you're all going to say Gunter, just list Gunter's name. Do it. Do it. Do it. RF Gaming says, I think for a business move, Logan would be good. But for a storyline, I think either Damien or LA. So RF Gaming is also not sure. Bailey is predicting Gunter. Carlos, Gunter. Spider-Boss, Gunter. Nelson says, anything on Tama or Gorilla of Destiny coming to WWE? Nope. I've not reported that myself and I haven't heard anything about it. Venom thinks Gunter. Daz thinks Gunter. Callie thinks Gunter. Corey thinks Gunter. Jack thinks Gunter. Moxie thinks Gunter. Wiggly thinks Gunter. So, yeah, a lot of love for Gunter. CM thinks this is where we'll see Randy Orton. We won't. Joey says, give us your Gunter introduction. No. Mark says, Gunter wins. Riyadh says, Gunter. Bismo thinks, Gunter. Jordan thinks, Gunter. Seems like Gunter, at this point in time, is the one. Spider-Boss says it'd be fun, a civil war in the Judgment Day. Damian Priest could make that happy. C-Mac thinks Gunter. Tristan says will be any Money in the Bank surprises, Randy Orton or Bray Wyatt or Drew McIntyre. No, 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 but also yes. Razar says Riddle, but I don't think he means it. I don't think he means it. Did you, Joey? What tease did you see? What did you see? What did you see? This leaves us with just 2 matches left to cover. I will start with the World Heavyweight Championship, this being Seth Rollins defending against Finn Balor. Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor is a guarantee of quality. I think this will be match of the night. Pardon me. And well worth its time. I do think there will be a lot of love for Finn Balor, potentially some interference, maybe even something involving a briefcase, but for me, Seth Rollins will retain. It's not his first championship defense, but it's his first big high-profile one. Seth Rollins is going to be picking up a lot of wins in the coming weeks. For me, Seth Rollins retains the World Heavyweight Championship. Peter thinks Drew interferes in the Gunter match. I certainly would love Gunter versus Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam, and I've mentioned this before. Mark has Seth winning, Spider-Boss has Seth, Venom has Seth. Tristan says, love you, Tom, you're funny. I'm going to give you a like. Cheers, mate. That's really nice of you. I really appreciate that. Bailey has Seth, Callie has Seth, Daz has Seth, and Corey has Seth. Jordan, he's got Seth. Jack has Seth. Carlos has Seth. Joey suggests maybe JD McDonough will get involved. That will certainly help him in his overall development. Razar has Seth. This leaves us then with our main event, Cody Rhodes versus Dominic Mysterio. I have absolute faith that Brock Lesnar is going to get involved, as I previously mentioned. This is probably why it's been moved to the main event as well. Maybe Brock's plane's late. Maybe his plane is delayed and is struggling to get into the country or some other drama. Anything like that. I have Dominic Mysterio winning the match because of interference from Brock Lesnar. Dominic Mysterio wins in the main event of Money in the Bank and just gets to celebrate that fact. This one could ultimately go either way because it is all about Brock, but I do think Dominic will end up picking up the win. Wiggly has Cody. Spider-Boss has Dominic win. Bailey says no contest, which is certainly an option. Jordan has... Oh, that was a different one. Carlos has Cody. Mark has Dominic winning. C-Mac has Dominic. Venom says Cody. Then Brock batters him. John says Dom to win. Jack says Dom. And Rob says Dom as well. Callie thinks Brock will smash Cody up and ruin the match. Dad says Dom by DQ. Sean says Cody main eventing over Roman. That is what they announced on Smackdown. Spider-Boss says Brock Lesnar beating up Cody and Dominic would be funny. Wiggly said is Ray in the country? Yes. Joey says can Cody overcome the odds? Maybe. Riyadh says Cody. Daniel says Cody better win. If Dominic, I will be annoyed. Those are my predictions for Money in the Bank. I will be repeating them tomorrow. We will be going live an hour before Money in the Bank starts. So as the pre-show starts, so too will we. And you can, of course, join us there. But until that point, I want to say a big thank you to all of you for joining me. A big thank you to everyone who's hit like, everyone who's watched one show, both shows, no shows, whatever works for you, and the additional 2 subscribers I gained. The trolls are buggered off now, as you guys know. So, as usual at this point, I will say that I've been Tom Colohue. I'm going to go to bed, which is amazing. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.